The appropriate greeting for this Friday evening and this Saturday is, first of all, Shabbat Shalom, to be followed by Shana Tova, or L'Shana Tova Tikatevu, may we all be written in the book of life for a good year. Shabbat, despite the fact that it occurs every week, still has precedence over any other event in the Jewish calendar year. So first Shabbat, then Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is called Shabbat, Shabbaton, the Sabbaths of Sabbath. Of course, right now, in the midst of all of this, with Rosh Hashanah, Shabbat coming up, we are living with what amounts to an halachic prohibition against hugging and kissing. It's really not Jewish. And with a stringent positive mandate to wear masks and to preserve social distancing. Our health, our survival requires such caution so that next year, God willing, and following all the proper rules regarding harassment, we can hug and kiss to our heart's content. But today, now, we can still eat pomegranate seeds, finding 613 such seeds in every rosy red piece of fruit. Enjoy around challah, join our congregations in virtual davening, and pray that our country, the entire world, will discover what needs to be discovered to dramatically diminish the destructive force of COVID-19. We need the science. We need powerful, clear, forceful, trustworthy, focused national leadership. And we need the willingness of ordinary citizens, you and me, to stop judging science through a political lens. In that direction lies disaster. Okay. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Saturday morning, the regular Torah reading is set aside, and instead we read the story of the birth of Isaac, the exile of Hagar and Ishmael, and the saving of Ishmael's life. We're reading from Genesis 21, 1 to 34. On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which would be Sunday, the reading is the story of the binding of Isaac, Akedat Yitzchak, Genesis 22, 1 to 24. For those of us in Reform congregations, most observe only one day of Rosh Hashanah. And by choice, the reading is that of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. That's, in a way, a shame, because every year we miss out on that key interactive confrontation, tension between two consecutive chapters in the Torah. So who was Ishmael? The first child of Abraham. His mother Hagar was Sarah's servant. Ishmael is considered by Muslim tradition to be not just the firstborn son of Abraham, but also Ishmael was the one responsible for the building of the Kaaba. By the way, he built it according to the Quran together with his father Abraham. That's right, Avram Avinu is one of the builders, according to the Quran, of the Kaaba, which is a structure at the very center of Islam's most important mosque in the world, located in Mecca, and thus making Mecca and the Kaaba the focus of the Hajj pilgrimage. Muslim tradition asserts that Ishmael's tomb is located near the Kaaba, and therefore Muslim prayer is directed in the direction of Mecca, the way Jewish prayer is directed in the direction of the Temple Mount. Mohammed, the prophet par excellence of Islam, is considered to be the direct lineal descendant of Ishmael, and thus Mohammed is in the direct line from Abraham, who then was Isaac, the second child of Abraham and the first child of Abraham and Sarah. And thus, Isaac is Ishmael's half-brother. The Torah clearly teaches that Isaac, however, was the child of the promise, the one who would be the next step in the creation of the Jewish people. But it was Isaac whom Abraham was commanded by God to sacrifice Akedat Yitzchak. And it was during that Akedah that a ram was substituted and sacrificed in Isaac's stead. Now, Isaac's achievements don't rank nearly as highly as the achievements of Abraham and the achievements of Jacob, Isaac's son. But as the father of Jacob, Jacob who would wrestle with an angel and gain the name Israel, the God wrestler, the same Jacob whose 12 sons would one day become the titular heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. With all of that background, Isaac has earned the rank of being considered a patriarch, one of 3 of the Jewish people. There we are. Ishmael and Isaac, half-brothers, sons of Abraham, regarded by Christians and Muslims and Jews alike as the progenitor of 3 of the major religions in the West, one of the 3 major religions of the whole world. I joined millions to watch the signing of the Abraham Accords peace agreement this week, which included a treaty of peace, the establishment of diplomatic relations, and full normalization between Israel and the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and the declaration of peace, cooperation, and constructive diplomatic and friendly relations between the Kingdom of Bahrain and the State of Israel. Isaac and Ishmael signing an agreement named after their father at the very same time that we are reading their stories on Rosh Hashanah 5781. I happen to love this kind of coincidence. Who knows? I had, under a different presidential administration, been invited once to the White House to witness an historic step in the effort to build some sort of ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors. I wasn't invited this time. I understand why, and it's okay. But, secret, I would have applauded the participants. I would have applauded Bibi Netanyahu. I would have applauded Jared Kushner. I would have applauded President Trump. Let me be clear. I yearn for Bibi's conviction in his corruption trial and for his rapid, permanent departure from Israel's political scene. And I cannot tolerate Jared Kushner's arrogant view of his own limited skills and capacity. And I can't tolerate President Trump, period. But I would have applauded their roles in bringing a new word into the Middle East lexicon: normalization. I have friends, I actually do, I have friends, passionate liberal Zionists who refuse to watch the signing ceremony on television. I have friends, passionate liberal Zionists, who refuse to tolerate a conversation that would involve in any way words of appreciation being expressed towards those 3. They probably have turned off these words right now. Bye. In their minds, this was all a staged, meaningless event to help Bibi stave off jail, to help Trump stave off electoral defeat, and to facilitate the UAE in its efforts to buy the world's most sophisticated jet fighter planes from the United States. For them, to praise the Abraham Accords is tantamount to saving Bibi's neck and Trump's neck. It was all a business deal, a transaction, nothing more and nothing less. Of equal aggravation to so many of my friends is that the Abraham Accords failed to address the Palestinians and their human right to have a separate state of their own, and to have that occur accompanied by the end of the Israeli occupation. I agree with all of that. I agree with every concern. But as I watched the events unfold on the White House lawn, I felt very pleased. Relations between Ishmael and Isaac, Ishmael and Yitzchak, have been fraught from the very time of their births, as recorded in Genesis. The traditional Torah reading for the first day of Rosh Hashanah makes very clear, terrifyingly clear, that after Isaac was born, Sarah wanted Hagar and her son Ishmael expelled from Abraham's tents, expelled in such a way that they would probably die. And Abraham went along with Sarah's vengeful intentions. Only what is described as angelic intervention saved mother and child. God in the Torah did not want Ishmael killed. Think about that. The reading for the second day of Rosh Hashanah is God demanding that Isaac be sacrificed, killed, the Akedah, right? Some of our rabbinic commentators believe that Abraham failed, it was one of the 10 tests, but failed this test here by not arguing with God against such a barbarous act. In the end, Ishmael survived, and so did Isaac. Over the ages, their descendants could live in conditions resembling mutually beneficial peace. At other times, and most notably 19th, 20th, 21st centuries, Isaac and Ishmael have been at each other's throats. Normalization came about because of some highly questionable motives. Normalization came about without solving the legitimate complaints and demands raised by both Palestinians and Israelis. And normalization did not come about as a natural development from our very own Torah readings. I get that. Being pleased over one truly important development must not, should not in any way diminish what some of us hope for, pray for, yearn to see, both in Israeli politics and in American politics. Being pleased, as I am, does not in any way grant us the right not to intensify our fight for a mutually just and fair resolution of the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. But this week, my friends, this week, 2 chapters of the Torah, for hundreds of centuries in bitter dialogue with each other, Isaac and Ishmael, 2 chapters, taking small steps toward a better, historically positive normalization. And I said a quiet Shechianu. I choose to be happy as this Shabbat and this Rosh Hashanah begin. You might want to do the same, or give it some time. Have a wonderful Shabbat. The Shana Tova Tikatevu. Be well, be safe, and celebrate the goodness of these very unique days in the Jewish calendar year.